Hello and welcome to the Musical Instrument Investigator. Today we're on the website of Chicago Violin Auction based in the US. We're going to have a look at their latest auction, which is bowed stringed musical instruments. Now this is a really exciting auction. This is the first auction from this auction house, and also it becomes possibly the only other specialist auction house of this type other than Teresio, so it really is exciting to see a new auction house appear. I believe what they have here is about 75 items which have come from a shop or dealer in Chicago that's closed down. That's what I hear, but there are possibly going to be other auctions in the future, so hopefully they do quite well. So yeah, recently, or a couple of within the last few years, we lost a few other auction houses in the US. There were Skinner's when they were bought up by Bonhams. They closed their musical instrument department. Kestenbaum used to do instruments and they kind of closed down. So yeah, we've not really had much choice recently, so I can't really understate how important it is that we have another auction house which is kind of dedicated to bowed stringed musical instruments. Anyway, that's a bit of an introduction and a ramble, but yeah, I'm quite excited about this. So yeah, looks like the buyer's premium is 20% on this auction, so remember, whatever the final price is, you need to add 20% to that. Obviously this is an auction house based in the US, so bear that in mind. Import, export, shipping, all of that stuff, probably CITES restrictions as well, all of the usual stuff. Check all the terms and conditions. Just like to say, if you do enjoy these videos, please consider subscribing, like, comment, turn on notifications, etc. And yeah, let's see how it goes, and hopefully we can give this auction house a bit of support and we can get a good bit of kind of friendly competition going in the US again, because it's been a bit of a one horse race for a while, and that's I don't think it's good for anyone really. So yeah, let's have a look at what they have. So we've got a violin bow, HR Frechner there, estimates 400 to 600. It's got a $200 bid at the moment. Looks like they have some info here, so it's half silver mounted, 58 grams. So head, it's got an audience side cheek repair, otherwise good. We're not going to go into the condition reports on everything in a detailed manner, but just thought I'd have a look at those first. So I like the pictures are pretty kind of crisp there, so that's a good first impression. Moving on to the second lot here. Violin bow unmarked, 400 to 600 is the estimate there, 275 bid. Once again, you can see the weight there, and they give you a bit of a condition report. I'm sure they'll probably give you more kind of information if you wanted. Just looking at the other bows there. This layout of this auction is a bit new to me. I've not seen this style, so I'm still kind of getting used to it a bit. Violin bow unmarked here, 4 to 600. Current bid is 275. Violin bow unmarked, possibly HR Frechner, 4 to 600. You've got $300 bid on that. Yeah, I do like the photos so far, look encouraging. Violin bow unmarked, attributed to Charles Pacat, okay, 5 to 800 on this. You've got 375 bid, but no, the reserve has not been met. That's a very interesting looking frog there. Right, so the head is splined, 60 grams, good overall. Capped butt, crack on audience side, so it's needs a bit of work. Let's just have a look at this bow in a bit more detail. Really interesting looking bow actually. You can see here it's a repair there, maybe not the cleanest of repairs, but maybe a good restorer could bring that back. There's a few issues with this bow, but interesting looking bow, and I am up for buying bows which are kind of broken, especially if you're a player. I think it's not the worst idea. What's the worst that could go wrong? And you could also get a bow a lot cheaper. So violin bow branded E Sartori there, 6 to 900 the estimate, 450 bid. Once again, we're not at the reserve yet. This does not look like any kind of Sartori I've seen, so not quite sure exactly what that is, but doesn't look in too bad condition. So yeah, looks pretty good, so that's nice. Violin bow, probably Albert Nernberger, 700 to 1,000 on that. We've got 500 bid. Once again, looks fairly interesting. Violin bow by Ernst Heinrich Roth, 800 to 1,200 on that, 500 bid. Violin bow branded Chadwick London, 800 to 1,200 the estimate, 500 is currently bid. Let's just have a quick look at this. Interesting to see the condition report on this one. Yeah, looks like a nice enough bow. Just as I think I probably forgot to mention that this auction is finishing on the 8th of December. It is, of course, the 1st today, so there is a few days left to go for you to bid. So we have a violin bow branded Mark Lebert here, 800 to 1,200 on that. Violin bow branded Sylvestre and Moccatel, circa 1911, 800 to 1,200 on that. Current bid 500. So good to see that they've got some bids in already. Violin bow W.E. Hill & Sons, estimate 600 to 900. Current bid 550. Okay, so this has got a big head repair. Let's have a look at that. Head splined. Let's just have a quick zoom on that. Yeah, once again, less than desirable head repair, but a good restorer can probably do something to that. I actually have a Hill bow that I got from one of the Amati auctions, which has a massive kind of copper faceplate on it, which is interesting, but it didn't cost very much money, so that's an interesting one. Violin bow branded Wurlitzer CNY, 1,000 to 1,500 on that, 700 the current bid. So reserves fairly high for a few of these. Violin bow unmarked, 1,000 to 1,500 on that, a 700 bid. Let's have a quick look at this as well. Is that tortoiseshell? Looks like it. So remember, tortoiseshell, that's going to be difficult to travel with. Let's just see what it says here. Gold mounted. Okay, they don't have any statements about CITES material, but they probably should do. But interesting anyway. Violin bow Albert Nernberger, 1,500 to 2,000 on that. Current bid is 1,000. Viola bow Albert Nernberger, 1,500 to 2,200. It's got 1,000 bid, but not reached the reserve yet. Interesting, the listings here. I'm not sure if this is deliberately being vague or this is their kind of way of setting it out, but it's kind of unusual to have something which I presume they are putting forward as being correct without kind of having say viola bow by Albert Nernberger. It's just a bit of an unusual way of doing it, but maybe that's a new way that people are doing this. Violin bow by W.E. Hill & Sons, 2 to 3,000 on that. Reserve not met, 1,200. So I wonder what the reserve is. Is the reserve the lower estimate possibly? Sometimes it's quite handy to know what the reserve is so people know what they're working with. But Violin bow Albert Nernberger, 2 to 3, current bid 1,300. Definitely some interesting bows in this auction for sure. Violin bow branded L. Bausch Leipzig, possibly by a member of the Knopp family. Interesting, 3 to 5,000, 1,500 bid on that. Very nice looking bow there. Cello bow branded A. Lamy, 500 to 800 bid on that. Looks fairly interesting. Cello bow Otto Paulus, 700 to 1,000 on that. 450 bid. Yeah, I feel like there's maybe a little bit of work needed on the terminology and the layout potentially, but otherwise running fairly smoothly so far. I do like the images. I'm just going to zoom out slightly just so I can see the other images a bit more clearly, or actually in fact I've got these side arrows, so don't really need to do that. Violin labelled Antonius Stradivarius, 2 to 300 is the estimate there. Current bid is 200. Violin labelled Nicholas Amatus, okay, 2 to 300 on that one. Looks fairly kind of standard stuff so far. The estimates are fair, so that's good. Violin labelled Johannes Jays, 2 to 300 on that. Violin labelled Antonius Stradivarius. Okay, yeah, fairly standard. Violin labelled Matthias Albanus, 2 to 300. Okay. A violin A.J. Lewandowski, circa 1976 there, 2 to 300 on that. Kind of interesting looking back on that. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so good kind of a American violin there. I do like to see that. That's one of the things I really liked about the Skinner's auction, which had quite a lot of really interesting American violins. Violin unlabelled here. It's fairly standard, but all really fair estimates there, so can't argue with any of that. This looks like a Hopf kind of type violin, violin Hopf. Yeah, it looks like kind of one of the later ones. So 3 to 500 the estimate on there, kind of the non-Hopf family, but the kind of Hopf style. Violin unlabelled, 3 to 500 on that. It's kind of interesting back on that. 3 to 500, 275 bid already. Let's have a look at that back a bit bigger. I do like the images actually. I think really do quite like the colour of these images. Feel really good, really crisp. So well done to them for that. I think that is quite impressive. Violin labelled GB Guadagnini, 3 to 500 there. Also looks fairly interesting. Violin unlabelled, 3 to 500 there. Violin John W. Marshall, Chicago, circa 1913. Looks like it needs a bit of repair there. Current bid 275. Nice piece of wood there on the back. Once again, nice interesting American violin there. Yeah, I like that. Really nice piece of wood there for the back. That's really interesting. Yeah, looks like quite a nice project, and I do like a lot of these American instruments. Another one, violin John W. Marshall, Chicago, circa 1917, kind of a Guarneri-ish looking instrument there. Similar kind of wood at the back, but varnish a bit different on this one. Violin J.A. Bader, Mittenwald, circa 1910. One of the workshop type violins. Violin Pierre Silvestre, a Lyon labelled. Interesting back on that. Yeah, I think kind of some consistency in the terminology, possibly missing a little bit there, but I think most people can kind of work out what's going on. Violin labelled Joseph Guarnerius. It's fairly standard as well. Violin labelled Antonius Stradivarius. Okay. Another Strad labelled violin there. Quite a nice scroll. 4 to 600 the estimate on that. Ooh, something's being withdrawn. Interesting. Violin unlabelled, 4 to 600 on that. Kind of interesting scroll on that. Let's have a look at a bit of a zoom in on this. Yeah, I do like these images a lot actually. I think they are really good. Viola unlabelled, okay. So let's have a look down actually and see. 397 length of back, no reserve, excellent. It's a bit of condition report stuff there. We've just been kind of skipping that for the main part. Violin Strad labelled. Another one, another withdrawn, okay. Violin Model de Prix and Tennis Stradivarius. Fairly standard kind of thing there. Another kind of one here. Quite nice back on that. Violin labelled August Newmarker Schoneck. Looks like it has a soundpost crack on the back, that one. I would suspect if we see in the condition report. Let's have a look. 356 length of back. Back good overall, okay, interesting. Cracks. Interesting grafted scroll. Looks a bit to me that it has a soundpost crack, but maybe not. Hard to see in this particular image. Violin labelled Antonio Laveri, 500 to 800 the estimate on that. It's fairly interesting. Well, we're getting along in the auction. Violin unlabelled, 500 to 800, 375 on this. It's fairly interesting looking. 358 length of back. So it's got a few issues. This I quite like. I think this is possibly the most interesting violin or interesting item so far that we've come across. Violin Thomas C. Push Aurora 1904. It's again kind of interesting back choice. Buttons are a bit small. 6 to 900, so I feel like we're slowly going up in estimate here. Violin Grand Conservatory, which I think is one of those kind of trade instruments. Violin possibly Simon Voigt, 18th century. 600 to 900 on that. Violin labelled Carlo Bergonzi. 359 length of back there. Violin unlabelled in the Brescian style. Okay. It's kind of double purfling. I suspect this is a kind of a trade, German trade violin of some kind, 600 to 900, but it's all estimates are kind of fair enough. Violin George A. Ostertag, Chicago, 1939. I like the F-holes on that. This looks quite interesting. Curious scroll, that, 600 to 900. Have a quick look at the back on this. Yeah, it's a fairly nice looking instrument. Violin labelled Johannes Galliano, 6 to 900 on that. That's a cool back on that. It's kind of interesting. Let's have a look. That might be a good cover image. Yeah, it's interesting stuff going on with the varnish there. The button looks a little bit off centre. Violin unlabelled, attributed to the workshop of Ernst Heinrich Roth, 800 to 1200, so that will probably do quite well. Violin P.C. Poulsen, Chicago, 1902, 800 to 1200 on that. Violin J. Fred Fair, Chicago, 1935, so we're getting lots of Chicago makers here, which is pretty cool. Yeah, it's quite quite nice looking. 800 to 1200 on that. A violin unlabelled in the style of DeSalo. I think it's one of these kind of 19th century German trade instruments with a bit more of a fancy design. Violin Julius Heberlein's Amati, Germany, circa 1930. The kind of 20th century German trade stuff. Violin Klotz School, circa 1800, 800 to 1200 on that. So it's got a few cracks and things at the back there. So yeah, back post crack. Okay, yep. Interesting. Violin labelled Nicholas Lupo. Violin labelled Pietro Antonio della Costa. Looks like another 19th century trade violin. Violin labelled Enricus Cerruti, 1000 to 1500 on that. Bids of 700. Well, it's good to see. I think everything's had a bid so far, or near to everything. Violin labelled Conrad Heberlein, estimates 1200 to 1800. Current bid 800. Violin labelled Gustav August Ficker, Galliano copy, 1971. 1200 to 1800 on that. Current bid is 800. Labelled Jules Bourgar Ruin, circa 1886. So once again, we can have a look down the bottom. 350. So it's quite a. So it's a violin. I said there's some kind of consistency in terminology that needs a bit of work, but otherwise interesting auction so far. Viola by Guy Cole, 1500 to 2200. This is a really nice looking instrument actually. 422 length the back. It's a really nice looking instrument actually. I think this is probably the nicest instrument in the cell. Really, that's a beautiful looking instrument. Wow, beautiful scroll. Yeah, really, really nice looking instrument, that for sure. Violin, Martin Sheridan, Abbey Strings, Chicago, 1500 to 2000 on that. So we've only got a few more left to go. Violin, Eugene Meinl, and original certificate there from 1926. 1500 to 2000 on that. Violin, probably Charles Jean-Baptiste Colomizat pair, circa 1890, 2 to 3000 on that. It's obviously got a fairly big soundpost crack on the front. Maybe it looks like a bit of a start of a saddle crack or bass bar crack. Interesting looking back on that. Let's see what they say here. Cracks on back, damage to bottom ribs. Yeah, soundpost cracks. So definitely needs a bit of work, that one. Violin labelled Giovanni Marchi after Steiner, 2.5 to 4000 on that. Cool looking scroll. Yeah, an interesting one. Violin labelled Viome, possibly by a member of the Chanot family. Interesting, 3 to 5 on that. Current bid 2000. It's kind of interesting. Bass bar crack. Oh, additional photos on Google Drive. Okay, that's interesting. Not seen that one before. Yeah, it does have that kind of Chanot look to it. Yeah, nice looking violin. That's an interesting one. And then I think we're on the last one now. Violin, Ernst Heinrich Roth, XR model, 1945. 5 to 8, 3,500 current bid. I'm not particularly up on these Roth models, but those of you in the US that are fans of these will know what that means. But yeah, interesting looking violin. And I think that is the end of this auction, I believe. So yeah, I think that's it. What happens if we go back? Right, okay. So there we have it, the first ever Chicago Violin Auction. Some interesting stuff there for sure. Yeah, definitely a cool auction. Really like the quality of the photos. Think it's really great. Seemed to work pretty smoothly, so no issues with that. Pretty clear with the condition report and other things. Think maybe some of the overall the terminology might need to be worked on here, and consistency, because it seemed to be a bit kind of up and down in a few places, but I'm sure they'll work that out for the next auction. So yeah, this is finishing on the 8th of December. Check out the catalogue, see what you think, let me know, put some comments down, and hopefully they'll have some more auctions in the future. So yeah, good stuff. So thanks a lot for watching, really appreciate it, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.